face serious risk of injury. And a dog has been going kind of through the races recently. Their name's Slingshot Sam. Incredible dog. They ran in a race, I think it was a semi-final the other week, and they got through the race. They won the race. They qualified. And on the way home, they died of a twisted stomach.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Conversations on Compassion. I'm your host Jade.
I'm Aaron.
And today we are joined by Norb, who is an animal rights activist and has been campaigning to shut down every greyhound track in Great Britain. Thank you for joining us, Norb.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and how you got involved with greyhound racing?
Yeah, so I've been an animal lover for as long as I can remember. I was raised to love animals. I had a dog in the house, I had cats in the house, and I used to watch Steve Irwin and David Attenborough. But for a significant part of my life, I was living out of line with those values. And it was only when I left home that I realised the animals that I love so much, the ones that I grew up feeding, like I used to bottle feed lambs when I grew up in rural Norfolk, these same animals were the ones that I was eating. And so it kind of, it triggered an enlightenment in me, so to speak. And from that point onwards, I was an animal rights activist, and I'd always volunteered in animal shelters and animal sanctuaries, mostly with dogs. And so I have a good understanding of dog behavior and what makes them tick. And it was when I was working at the RSPCA that I really fell in love with greyhounds and all sight hounds. And so yeah, wanting to end greyhound racing where they suffer so immensely is really close to my heart.
Amazing. And I think for a lot of people who love dogs and then therefore maybe go to the races because they think the dogs are having fun or, you know, something like that, what is the biggest misconception you've come across about greyhound racing?
The biggest misconception, and it's a lie sold by the industry, is that they care about these dogs' welfare. Right now, we're in the middle of a heat wave. It's so hot. And yesterday, maybe 1 or 2 tracks cancelled the races because of the heat. But I think 6 or 7 went ahead with those races. So they don't care. Sometimes they performatively do when they say we've rehomed this number of dogs. But the reality of this is, you know, they continue to race them and put them at serious risk of harm and even death. And they're rehoming them at such young ages. They don't care about these dogs after they stop running fast. And so you see greyhounds going into already overflowing animal shelters at the age of 2-3 years old. And, you know, they'll live at least a decade.
Crazy. So I think a lot of people also think that the greyhounds enjoy racing, or it's a chance for them to fulfill their natural instinct. Can you kind of speak on that and the truth? Is that what it is? Is it fun for them?
Yeah. And again, this is another lie peddled by the industry. They'll show misleading videos of the dogs having fun in the yard, running about. And yeah, of course they do. It's a natural behavior for dogs to play and run, and to exhibit those behaviors is healthy. The problem is they're trained to race in a way that puts them at serious risk of harm. And so, you know, we can't read their minds. We can read their body language and make assessments on how they're feeling. But the reality is a race for them is like it's over in a matter of minutes at most. It's not a core part of enrichment for them. And I would say they could get hypothetically, let's say they do enjoy that race format, they could get the same thing, but arguably even better from being taken to the park and allowed to run, rather than being forced to run in a circle where, you know, they do face serious risk of injury. And recently near me, I live up in Newcastle, and we have 3 dog tracks within 30 minutes of my house. But one of those is Newcastle Dog Track. And a dog has been going kind of through the races recently. Their name's Slingshot Sam. Incredible dog. The person who trained them raved about them because they were fast and they were winning races. They ran in a race, I think it was a semi-final the other week, and they got through the race. They won the race. They qualified. And on the way home, they died of a twisted stomach. And, this is a risk. This is one of the many risks that dogs forced to race face. And so for me, it's not like it's a natural environment where they're naturally exhibiting healthy behaviors. It's one that they're put in and trained to perform in. And at the end of the day, it's not for them. Otherwise, the people who care so deeply about these dogs wouldn't be giving them up to rescue. It's about the betting industry. It's about the thrill of the race. And for me, we can get enjoyment from so many different sports and entertainments that don't involve harming animals.
Yeah, with humans who can consent to participating and who will get actual treatment if they get injured.
And I saw a video the other day of a running race of 2 trainers at a dog track.
Oh, wow.
They were clearly just doing it for fun. They weren't very good. But, some of these tracks are shared with like the speedways, for example, which involves people voluntarily putting themselves into races. It doesn't involve forcing a dog. And obviously in these alternative forms of entertainment, we wouldn't accept the death rates that we do with dogs, where we know hundreds die each year, the equivalent of, 1 every 2 to 3 days, which are obscene statistics. If you saw that in any other form of entertainment, and I'm not going to call greyhound racing a sport because it isn't, and it doesn't meet the criteria of a sport actually, because it puts animals at risk. But if you saw those figures, if you saw lives being lost at that rate in any other form of entertainment, there'd be public outcry and it would be banned overnight.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's quite hidden really, isn't it? Because they don't hear about it as much. And I think people just think it's like a harmless fun day out where it's anything but that for the dogs.
Exactly, yeah.
And what about kind of their lives off the track? What is that like for a greyhound whilst they're in the industry?
Yeah, so I mentioned before natural behaviours, and I think as someone who's worked with dogs for a long time, this is what it always comes back to for me. We have the Animal Welfare Act, which basically protects animals, and it's about them having these 5 freedoms, one of which is to exhibit natural behaviours. And a greyhound in the racing industry is denied those natural behaviours because for the majority of their racing life, so to speak, they're kept in kennels, they're kennelled away, often separately, and these are very social, active animals, and so that's incredibly detrimental to their physical and mental health. And then on the topic of their physical health as well, they're pushed to extremes. They're sometimes fed, highly inappropriate diets at varying times, and that's disrupted. Their routine will be disrupted by race days and the like. So, yeah, and to call it a life as well is probably exaggerating when it's a fraction of what their life could be if they die on the tracks or if they die away from the tracks. And then when they're rehomed, where, the industry kind of wash their hands of the responsibility of looking after them after a couple of years and send them off to live what is the majority of their life, if they're lucky, in a nice home with people who genuinely exhibit the love they claim to have for them and, let them in the house, let them on the sofas, let them in beds. And even if you don't, you're walking them and playing with them. And maybe going back to your previous question, a really common misconception about greyhounds, they're couch potatoes.
Yeah.
I had a sighthound, a lurcher, so a greyhound cross, living with me. I fostered them for a year. Their name was Prince, potentially the love of my life. I miss him every single day. He's gone on to a beautiful family. And yeah, he would lie in longer than me. And for people who know me, I love sleeping. But it would be me having to push him out of bed in the morning to be like, look, you definitely need to go and pee because it's 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And that's the life they love. And, he got to exhibit his natural behaviours and he got a home and a family that love him now. And he'll go and run around the park if he wants to. And yeah, he's a beautiful dog and they all are.
Yeah, 100%.
When say the dog's useless to the racing industry and they're rehomed, would they have a way of rehoming them, or would they just dump them at the RSPCA or just find someone that wants them? Do they have a process that they follow?
Yeah, they do. So this is one of the incredible, I guess, spins that comes from the industry, is that they basically they've set up their own charity rehoming wing, basically, where most of the greyhounds pass through. Not all of them, and I may be misquoting this figure now, but I think about 200, the figure in my head is 208 last year, weren't rehomed out of the many that will have gone through the system. And the reasons given for that is if there are vet fees associated with it, or the very ambiguous, not suitable for rehoming, which couldn't, mean anything. I imagine they'll argue high prey drive or aggression or something like that. But, these are things that can be trained and managed. Yeah. But yeah, they rehome them mostly through their rescue centres attached to the industry. Yeah. I believe some rescue centres are also linked with the industry, so they'll take some, presumably for a bit of money. Yeah, it's not ideal when we have rescues, specifically dog rescues, already overflowing in this country, where we've got an industry that breeds dogs excessively and then gives them up and relies on people rescuing them. And yeah, well, I used to work at my local rescue centre in York, the RSPCA York Animal Home, and we would have dogs come through our doors, almost daily, and some of them would stay there for 6 months to a year, and that included greyhounds. So I mentioned it was working there where like my love of sight hounds really came into force. When I was working there was a case of 38 greyhounds who were basically rescued by the RSPCA and the police from a greyhound trainer. Wow. She was a trainer who had been licensed for something ridiculous like 17 years, and her local dog track had closed. And as a result of the track closing, she kind of washed her hands of the dogs, but they were still in her care. And she was reported, the police and the RSPCA got involved, and a handful of the dogs, I would say like upwards of 10, came to my rescue shelter. We were already overflowing. And because it was a criminal case as well, they were taking up kennel space for at least a year, I would say.
Because you can't rehome them.
Because we couldn't rehome them during the court case. The woman was rightfully found guilty, received, a pitiful sentence, as is always the case. But those dogs came to us and, we got them after they'd been washed up a little bit, but they were emaciated. You could see every single bone in their body. They were terrified of humans. Like they hadn't been socialized appropriately at all, to the point where, we were giving them the best care that we could, but they were just shut down. And really, actually, even once we won the court case, really difficult to rehome because these dogs were terrified of their own shadow. So I don't know, we can never know what they went through in the industry and in that person's care. The state and the condition they came to us in really spoke for itself. And the people who rescued them, the RSPCA inspectors, they described the smell and the conditions and the filth that they were kept in. And yeah, it's really stayed with me. That was years ago now. And to this day, it stays with me.
That's horrible. Yeah. Is that kind of, that experience part of what fueled you to kind of fight against the industry?
Definitely, yeah. I first got involved campaigning against greyhound racing at the same time that woman was going through the court process. Oh, wow. And she was actually sentenced a few days before the Greyhound Derby final in 2023, where as part of a group I was campaigning with, we planned to disrupt and stop the Toaster Greyhound Derby final because we knew dogs were at risk of harm and we wanted to get onto the tracks and prevent that harm being carried out. We were unfortunately unsuccessful, but in the process I campaigned against my local dog track. I think we had local protests outside more than half of the remaining dog tracks, which at the time was upwards of 20. And I think right now we're sitting at 18 active dog tracks, one of which is burnt down and so not actually racing, which is, they're closing every year.
It's amazing. So can you tell us a little bit more about your campaign work? And you're on a mission to shut down all of the greyhound tracks in the UK.
Yes.
Tell us.
Yes, I am. Well, specifically in England, because right now there hasn't been racing in Scotland for a number of months after their last track closed. And in Wales, there's one track left, but the government there are implementing a ban.
Amazing.
So that track will close. It's
they seem
inevitable.
to be ahead of us in quite a lot of the things, like with
Yes.
banning snares. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was inspired by that and Swindon track closing, which it's closing its doors for the last time on the 30th of December this year.
Amazing.
And Birmingham track, which is closing its doors for the last time on the 23rd of August this year. And it was inspired by this momentum that I looked at the fact I had 3 dog tracks near me and I was like, I think I can close these ones. And there are 3 within 30 minutes of my house. And then with the 2 closing this year, it leaves about 15, 16 left. I was like, well, if I'm doing 3 of them, why don't we do all 60? And so that's where the idea came from. And I started reaching out to people I knew nearby to the remaining tracks. And obviously there were some existing campaigns already. So Brighton and Hove, they campaign against Hove dog track very regularly. In Yarmouth as well, there's an existing campaign. Swindon and Birmingham both had campaigns before they obviously won and the tracks are closing. So initially I reached out to them. I was like, look, I want to learn from you because I want to shut down my tracks, but also I want to link us all up.
Yeah.
And let's give the industry the pressure that it deserves, because our government aren't going to legislate. They've said they're not going to ban greyhound racing, but tracks are closing, property developers always circling. And so with powerful targeted pressure campaigns against every single dog track left in England, we can close them one by one with people power, with community power, because people are against this.
Yeah.
And the community are against this. And if we mobilize those communities, we can force these dog tracks, which aren't, these aren't harmless local businesses. This is a multi-million-pound betting entertainment industry. But if we can put enough pressure on them, if we can damage their profits and make the tracks toxic to work with for their sponsors and suppliers, if we can cause them enough of a headache, the next time a property developer comes along and makes an offer, it'll be that bit more appealing to take it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I hope for, because it's a big industry, but the tracks are closing without pressure. So imagine if we do add pressure, what we can do.
So Animal Aid has just launched our campaign to end greyhound racing, and we're taking a multi-pronged approach and working with a lot of kind of people like you who have been on the ground doing the work. So we have launched our government petition. So for anyone that doesn't know, if you have a petition not on the government website, even if you reach 100,000 signatures, there's not really anything that can be done about it, where if you reach 100,000, they have to debate it. So we're hoping to get that kind of pass through. So we'll put a link in the put a link for you to sign that. We also have our day of action on the 20th of August, where we're going to be having a demo. Are you going to be there?
I will, yes.
Excellent.
I need to book my trains. It's a bit of a track from Newcastle, but I'm going to be there.
Amazing. Yeah. That'll be great. And can you tell us kind of other ways that people can get involved outside of attending demos and signing petitions?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I'll be there on the 20th. I've signed the petition, but we do have these local dog track demos or these campaigns starting.
Yeah.
And we're launching a number of them actually during your kind of week of action.
Perfect.
So it coincides nicely. And originally when I started working on this, I was hoping maybe we can have a demo at half of the dog tracks in August, and then we'll have one at all of them by Christmas. But somewhere along the way, it's now looking like we will have a demo at every single remaining dog track in England during that week between the 18th and 23rd of August.
Amazing.
So look up if you have a dog track near you.
Okay.
If there is a dog track, there's going to be a demo there.
Amazing.
So find out when it is, go along to it. I think Animal Aid are going to help us publicise them.
Perfect.
And they'll be on Facebook as well, and hopefully circulating in a way that is possible for people to find. And it should be a powerful show of force against an industry that's way overdue. Definitely. A bit more attention.
Definitely.
Like its own greyhound racing itself is only lawful in a handful of countries now. And the fact that Scotland, England and Wales are 3 of them is shocking.
Yeah.
And I think
as like a nation of animal lovers as well.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
dog
And
in
dog
particular.
lovers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how the industry has got away with it for so long.
Yeah.
I think part of it is they rely a lot on international viewers making
Okay.
bets, is what I've been told.
Okay.
And so whilst track attendance is declining significantly and has declined significantly, they still get a lot of money from the betting industry.
Yeah.
And even my local dog track in Newcastle isn't even advertised really to the public. It's off a main road and there's not even a sign saying Newcastle Dog Track, which, if they were an industry that was in favour with the public, they'd probably want to advertise themselves a bit more, but I think they've got away with it too long from flying under the radar.
Yeah.
So us being there with placards and banners, we're not just outreaching the people going through the doors, some of whom will be there for work events or social events, like you say, they just think it's a harmless day out. Not only are we making them think and reconsider their decision to be there, but we're also catching the people who are driving past at rush hour who didn't even realise our city had a dog track.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those people would view those dog tracks as a stain on their city and on our culture when loving animals, and in particular dogs, is so tied to our cultural identity.
Yeah. And I think what you said about kind of like how we've got away with it and how it's gone under the radar, I think we see this in a lot of our campaigns, but people don't always look at animals as the individuals that they are. And kind of, so our latest campaign, we've got the ads on the underground and it's highlighting individual rescued greyhounds and just showing them kind of as individuals. And I think hopefully that will help get through to people. It's just to see those dogs. Like you said, you've worked at rescues. We're dog mum, dog dad. Not together. And your dogs as like individuals and kind of they all have their own little personalities and quirks. And like whilst greyhounds maybe have breed similarities, they are all individuals and that want different things. And I think if people get the chance to know them that way, hopefully that will help people see that.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about Animal Aid's campaign. And you're so right about them all being individuals. And that's why it's so harmful when the industry describes them as like a monolith of dogs who just love to run.
Yeah.
Because one, it's inaccurate, but two, it doesn't reflect their individual wants and needs and desires. And so, I think it is really important people see the individual. And I got to see them when I fostered Prince for the year, and then when the dogs came in from that trainer, and it was learning to love sighthounds and kind of being surrounded by the community of sighthound lovers, because it is a real niche.
Yeah.
When I was in York, there was a monthly greyhound walk, for example, and I used to take Prince, and he had a lot of issues himself, bless him, so he had to stay muzzled and he was afraid of the outdoors to a degree, so it took a lot of training to get him to that point, but he used to go along with his friend Jackson, who gave him a lot of like confidence to go outside, and we took him on the greyhound walk, and you meet this community and you meet all the greyhounds as well, and they have their own friendships in the community and it's really beautiful. And so it is so important that we don't just see what the industry wants us to see, but also that we don't see the greyhounds as one big collective monolith, and actually we see the individuals.
What would you say to someone who says that we should try and work on improving the welfare of greyhounds rather than a total ban? Yeah,
excellent question. And I love the question for a few reasons. First of all, I'd like to talk a bit more about the RSPCA. Yeah. So they oppose greyhound racing in its entirety and they support a ban, but they don't for horse racing, which I find really interesting because they say that they are fine with horse racing because the industry has welfare schemes, puts a lot of money into welfare, supports welfare, but more horses die in the industry than dogs.
Yeah.
So that's what I find really interesting about your question, because both of these industries, horse racing and dog racing, both profit off the suffering and abuse of animals and ultimately their deaths. And no number of welfare reforms can be introduced to make that race safe, or they would have done it by now. You would assume, if they care so much about the animals. So, for me in the industry, whether it's dog racing or horse racing, welfare is performative. And it's something they talk about to cling on to their dying social license. And ultimately, you know, we're progressing as a society and we're leaving animal cruelty in the past. And some things take longer to break down over time than others. So, you know, sometimes things like cockfighting, dogfighting, very visceral cruelty, way in our past now. Hunting, technically banned, still happens. Hopefully we see a proper ban soon. And then things like horse racing and dog racing, very much on the way out, waning social license. And I would say welfare is like, and the performance of welfare is kind of the dying throes of an industry that will be gone in a few years.
So our demo is going to be in London, and like you mentioned, they're going to be all over the country. As someone who's quite seasoned at attending them, what kind of advice would you give? So it's going to be a peaceful protest, kind of, yeah. Is there anything you'd say to anyone who wants to go but is a bit nervous?
Yeah, I would say something that always comes up for me is, you know, if you're nervous or if you're scared, embrace that and do it anyway, because these dogs need us. And I'm an introvert. A lot of people don't realise that because I do so much campaigning, but I'm constantly outside of my comfort zone, and I do it because it's the right thing to do. And we need more people doing difficult things because it's the right thing to do. So if you're nervous, come along anyway. The community is incredible. You know, you'll probably meet dogs as well because
That's the one.
yeah, because people who rescue greyhounds, they care deeply about ending the industry because they often see firsthand the effect it has on their dogs. And so at all of the protests I've done around greyhound racing, someone always brings a greyhound.
That's all you need to say,
there you
really.
go. Yeah. So come meet a dog.
Amazing. And we have one final question that we ask everyone before we end. You have one meal to convince a non-vegan to go vegan. What are you feeding them?
It's got to be a vegan mac and cheese.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Or if you're feeling healthier, maybe cauliflower cheese.
Oh,
But
nice.
that's my go-to.
What cheese do you use?
Honestly, back in the day, limited by options, but these days I can use any cheese just
Yeah.
off the shelf. Like
There's so many
even
now.
Little Own brand will be fine.
Really? I haven't tried that one.
They've come a long way. But yeah,
Nice.
Applewoods is
Oh, that's good.
very
yeah.
popular.
Yeah, I like that. What's your...
How long have you been vegan?
I've been vegan 9 years now.
Same as me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You're
Twins.
like
11 years now.
Wow,
Yeah. Were you
damn.
veggie before that?
No, I changed overnight. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, someone basically came up to me and was like, "You love the environment, you love animals. Why aren't you vegan?" person telling me that wasn't even vegan. We're still friends. She still isn't vegan.
Really?
Yeah. But I knew one other vegan in my life at the time, and I messaged them and I was like, if you keep me vegan for a week, I'll do it for life.
Love
And
it.
here we are. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So if people want to follow you, get involved, where can they find you?
So on Instagram, we are shutdown.campaign, and you can find us there, and you can find also your local dog track demo there. And we'll have a website soon too, which is shutdown.org.uk.
So I'll put all the links in the description as well, so it's easier to find.
You're a star. Thank you.
Perfect. And all the ways you guys can get involved in our week of action. And so yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Norb.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It was great fun.